Web Marketing That Works podcast, episode 116, with today's guest, Jill Stanton from Screw the 9 to 5.
Welcome to the Web Marketing That Works podcast. Come behind the scenes of real-life marketing experiments and listen in as amazing guests confess the truth about what really works. Now, here are your hosts, Adam Franklin and Toby Jenkins.
Hey there, my name's Adam Franklin and welcome to the Web Marketing That Works podcast. This is the show for people like you and like me who love marketing on the web. We're going to take you behind the scenes of real-life marketing experiments to uncover the good, the bad, and the ugly. We're going to confess what's failed and also reveal the truth about what really works. The show is brought to you by the book that Toby and I wrote, which is called Web Marketing That Works as well. And there's a gift for you, our listener, and that is the 33 marketing templates. You can get your hands on those at bluewiremedia.com.au/book. Okay, so today's guest is Jill Stanton from Screw the 9 to 5, which is a website all designed around helping people make that transition out of corporate land and into the world of online business. I actually met Jill and her husband Josh Stanton in San Diego at Social Media Marketing World, and I really liked what they were about. I've been following their work for a little while now, and as you'll discover on the show, they've been doing all sorts of different online businesses, but the most recent iteration has been the website Screw the 9 to 5, and they've got a huge and vibrant online community. They've got a membership site and all sorts of other cool stuff going on. Jill is from Toronto and Josh is an Aussie. It sounds like it's a very good partnership and relationship. And some of the things that we're going to cover in today's show are the basics, but also really focusing on what has worked well for them. Having a free Facebook group, having sales funnels, having lead magnets, and having a core offer and a membership site. These are all some of the things that Toby and I are looking at and experimenting and validating at the moment. And it sounds as though Josh and Jill have really paved the way here. So I personally learned a lot, and I hope you do too. Let's head over to the show. It's Adam Franklin here, and I am joined on the line by Jill Stanton from Screw the 9 to 5. How's things, Jill?
Thanks so much for having me. They're going well. And you?
I am very well, thank you. I am very well. Now, listen, my first question for you, Jill, is have you ever had a 9 to 5 job?
Well, I was a bartender for like 10 years. So I actually had a different kind of 9 to 5 because I was working 9 p.m. till 5 a.m. But apart from that, like in a office building kind of 9 to 5, I had one for about 3 months when I was, I think like 22 or so. And that was enough. I learned my lesson.
What sort of job were you doing?
I was actually interning at one of Toronto's like big major television networks. And I had a dream way back then to go into television broadcasting. So I was trying to intern to get a feel for how it all worked and how it went down. But I quickly realized that, sitting in a cubicle and transcribing videos was not for me. So I kind of shifted.
Back in the pre-speech pad days that does all our transcribing very effortlessly, hey?
Yeah, totally. Pre-Facebook days even. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been so bored because I just would have done that online.
You might have actually stayed in that corporate job after all.
Yeah.
Facebook around. So what were the things that you did to get out of that corporate internship and into the world that you live in now and pursue that dream?
Yeah, it's kind of been a weird, winding, twisted road almost. Like I was interning for, it's called CTV and the show was called eTalk Daily. I think now it's just eTalk. But anyways, so I was transcribing videos and just being everyone's bitch pretty much. And I realized that I just wanted to be able to actually get some experience and not just be in production work. I wanted to kind of do, just in front of the camera stuff. I always joke that I came out of the womb like smizing, like smile with your eyes, smizing and striking a pose. And I'm such a camera whore. So I signed with a modeling agency and I started doing that. And I modeled in Toronto for about I think it was about close to 8 years or so until I finally left. But that kind of transitioned into creating and hosting and producing my own web TV show. So that was called 20 something. And thank God I did it before you couldn't erase stuff off the internet, because there's just so many episodes I wouldn't want to see the light of day right now. And then that transitioned into another web TV show it was more of a travel based web show. And that's how I ended up going to Australia. And that was called Jill and Stacy Do the Roo. And that was with a girlfriend of mine. And then that transitioned into, I was bartending, just obviously to make side money. And my boss at the time was looking to really kind of amp up his social media exposure, do a lot of video work. And so I saw an opportunity and I just pitched him out of the blue, I'll manage all your venues. Because I was so desperately looking for a way to get out of bartending. And I had been in hospitality up to that point for well over 10 years because I served before that. And he said, let's do it. And that was my last shift bartending. I never went back. I was like, okay, I'm out. I'm never going back. And so that was my first real step into running a profitable online business, because I kind of tried before, but just really always fell flat on my face or just lost lots of money. So that was my first experience running my own service-based business. And from there, I'd be managing all these venues and I'd be watching Josh, who had a software company at the same time, just work 4 days a week if he wanted to, 0 hours a day if he wanted to. And I was sitting there slaving over TweetDeck, trying to, get results for all the venues I was managing. And I just thought to myself, I hate you. How are you doing this? And I'm sitting here, consistently cranking out 10-hour days. And so he eventually kind of went his separate ways from his partner. And I just got really disenchanted with my business. And together we were like, what if we just try and set up a website ourselves and see if we could work together? And so we started dabbling in affiliate marketing. And that's how we started our first business together. So it was kind of like a weird journey to that point. But all my experience in doing social media and video work really came in handy, because we had the skincare site and I was doing videos for that. And I was writing and managing the social presence. And that really helped to feed into that site's success. And then that led into us kind of just rinsing and repeating until we had about 30 websites in our little arsenal. And then came Screw the 9 to 5. And here we are. Most long-winded story ever.
No, that's cool. It's always interesting to hear how people get to where they are. And you mentioned earlier on that you fell flat a few times trying to do things. You either lost money really quickly or didn't get any traction. These are the parts that often we skip over, and we look at you where you are now with your online business. But what are some of the things you were trying in those early days that didn't get traction, or where you did fall flat?
Well, for sure, especially with my first web TV series that. I just think that was before its time, because we started that in 2006 when people were like, what do you mean an internet TV show? I'm watching CBS and having to deal with the commercials. So I think that the main struggle there was I wasn't clear on who I was trying to talk to. I think that was the biggest struggle. I wasn't clear on the message or the purpose behind it. And I had a partner who was producing with me. And I think we just had two very, very different opinions on which direction the show should go. And since I created it, I was super protective over it. And I think I was a bit too emotional in business. And I think that all of that just combined and kind of compacted on each other just caused it to sort of flatline, and not just flatline, but make me lose a lot of money.
Yeah. And so did you ever feel like giving up in those
all
early
the time?
days? Yeah.
I shouldn't say all the time, because I was mid 20s. So I was just like, oh, this is awesome. And I was bartending. So I was making enough money. So that wasn't really a thing. And I was still so hell bent on chasing this dream of mine that I think that's what kept me going. But there was definitely frustrating, ugly cry moments where I was just like, damn, this is hard. And I mean, my partner at the time for the show was in his 40s and I'm in 25. So we didn't really always see eye to eye. And so that was a big struggle as well, because I didn't really have anyone who really got my vision. And I also didn't know enough in business to be able to stand up for what I truly believed in and even spot a purpose or know what an ideal customer is, anything like that. So I think that's where we were torn. I didn't know a damn thing about digital products. We were just trying to sell ad space pretty much in our videos or get sponsors. So there's just a whole bunch of hiccups. But knowing what I know now, I feel like I could crush that. I just don't want to go back into that world.
And what did your friends and family think? Did they think you were crazy, or did they think you were ambitious, or what was going through your friends and family's mind at the time?
Probably a little bit of column A, column B. My mom definitely said to me multiple times, can you please just get a real job? And I was like, I do have a job. I work harder than anyone else. I'm just not making money. But then at the same time, she appreciated the fact that I was just relentless in my pursuits. And I mean, it's all worked out now. So she's just like, oh, I'm so happy you did that, Jill. And I loved watching it. I'm like, mm-hmm. Remember that time or those times where you told me to go get a job? But it all worked out.
That's cool. And you mentioned Josh earlier. So he's, of course, your Australian husband.
Yeah.
So how did that come about? You said you met him when you did come over here, but tell us a bit more about that story.
Actually, I didn't meet him in Australia. I met him in Toronto. Okay. So he had, like I said, the software business, and his partner was Australian, and him and his now wife were in Toronto for a year. And I met them through mutual friends, and they said, oh, you should meet our friend Josh. And since I was already moving to Australia, I was like, okay, sure, no problem. And this is getting so ridiculous, but Josh was living in Beijing at the time. So he came from Beijing to Toronto. I was moving to Australia. It was just like madness, and somehow it worked.
Well, that's really good to hear. I like it when you hear the Aussies doing a good job and picking up a nice girl like you, Jill. So that's very
He wanted
easy.
Nothing to do with me, which is probably why I was all like, oh my God, I love this guy.
So how does the business and the relationship work now? Do you have different roles within the company, or do you both do the same stuff?
No, completely separate. So it's been kind of a process. I mean, in 2012, 2013, I think we were always both trying to step into each other's lanes, like really trying to micromanage each other. It ended up, things felt a little divorcey. Mm-hmm. But after a while, we started really trying to figure out our strengths. So I learned that my main strength is community. Like, not to sound like a total dick, but it's just a big strength of mine to run and manage a community that is, just really high touch, hyper engaged, that kind of thing. Plus, I feel as though I'm a great writer. Some people might disagree with me because I'm a bit sassy in my writing. So my strengths are community, communication, content, and then coverage. So kind of doing the videos or the interviews, the guest posts, that kind of thing. Whereas Josh's side is very much automation, tech, just that whole side of things, like setting everything up, the funnels, that side of the strategy element to it. So he's very in the trenches in that respect. And then both of us work on the strategy and just like the big picture.
Nice. So what have been some of the things that have worked particularly well with your content marketing or your community marketing, Jill?
So the biggest thing, hands down, has been, actually, it's kind of twofold. So it all started with opening up free Facebook group. So that has probably been the biggest win we've had in our business. So I opened that back in April 2015. And as of today, I'm just under 6,000 members or so. And for the most part, I hit 5,000 just organically, running no ads to it, just really having some streamlined, targeted ways of promoting it. And then the other big win was creating sales funnels. So I'm sure you know James Shramko. He's a fellow Aussie, but he has this whole strategy he calls the octopus. And we really adopted that into our business. So the octopus essentially is you have a core offer. So for us, that's our monthly membership community, Screw You. So it is the one thing we are constantly driving people to. It's the only thing we sell pretty much. So what we do is we fracture out our courses from inside Screw You and we sell them as one-off products. So to do this, we have a system we call Read Magnet, Lead Magnet, Intro Offer, Core Offer. So a Read Magnet would be a blog post that is super, super detailed, that is in line and hyper specific to that product or that digital course that we eventually want to sell. Then the Lead Magnet is again relevant to the blog post. So for example, I have a funnel or a tentacle of the octopus all about sales funnels. So I wrote a post on how we create our sales funnels, how we run them, the strategy behind them. Then the lead magnet to that is to steal my emails. So you can get the emails that I use in my funnels. So again, that's super specific to that blog post. So it's almost a no-brainer for people to opt into it. Then once they opt in, they're presented with a one-time offer to grab our digital course from Inside Screw You called The Perfect Sales Funnel. If they choose to take that up, then they'll then get pitched for Screw You. So
and just quickly, how much is the Perfect Funnel, that one-time only offer, Jill?
So it's regularly priced $79. Then we do a 15-minute OTO offer of $19 and 45, and then you have 48 hours to grab it at $39 before it goes back up to $79.
Cool. All right, carry on.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's pretty much. So that's one thing that's really, really worked in our business. And how I use those in conjunction, the Facebook group and these funnels, is I poll my group to find out what they want to learn about. And then I take the top 2 voted on topics and I start creating these funnels around them. So it kind of works in conjunction with each other. And the minute we figured that out, pretty much everything about our business changed.
Very, very interesting. And so when you're polling your Facebook group, are you giving them a certain number of options and they just pick, or are you doing more of an open-ended question and getting all of their feedback in?
No, I do give them about 4 or 5 options. I tried the open feedback, but then it was just, ridiculous because people will come up with actually the most random comments ever, like just things that are so weirdly specific to what they're dealing with that day. And it's not actually like a general strategy that you could teach. It's kind of like, I don't know, just like how to close this or how to get my current client to respond back to me. And you're like, no. So I give them the options that we're considering and the stuff that we actually can teach. Like I'm not going to try and teach e-commerce when I've never done it, So if I left it open to people and they're like, I want to learn drop shipping, I'd be like, damn it.
Well, that's so interesting. I mean, that was not very interesting, but I found that reassuring because I found the same. We did these open-ended questions to our audience and got nothing conclusive. It was just so broad and so random. And it was like, man, okay, so we don't really have anything to work with.
Okay, I'm going to delete this thread now.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so what were you doing before you worked out this octopus sales funnel? What did you have, like a whole bunch of different products you were selling with less of a structure to it? Like what did it look like?
Pretty much, We were doing one-off digital products with just like as many webinars as we could crank out, which was annoying because we found that here's another thing we've discovered about ourselves, that we aren't necessarily launch people. Like that whole process of doing these big, huge, like JV launches every year, like that stresses us the F out. And so we realized that, okay, we hate starting at square one each month. We don't want to keep creating all these one-off products. I don't want to do launches. And so that's how we kind of moved towards or transitioned towards the whole monthly continuity model, because we were so sick of, you hit, just say, for example, like $10,000 a month. Then, February 1st rolls around and you're like, okay, shit, now we have to hit 12,000 this. You know what I mean? Like it's a constant battle to try and one up last month's revenue. And we were so sick of that.
Yeah, I hear you. So that is very, very Schramko-like, isn't it? He's been a previous guest on the show, so listeners will recognize that approach. And so that continuity site you mentioned, so did that come after April 2015 when you opened up your Facebook group? Was that like a subsequent event once you'd done all that polling?
Yeah. Well, I hadn't even thought about polling at this point. When I first opened the Facebook group, I used it to sell Screw You, which is our monthly membership now, but it was just a one-off digital product. So I was using the group to sell that and to sell our other product at the same time, which was 30-day online business plan, which has now been rolled into Screw You in the monthly community. And I was using it to sell our other digital program, which was called Lifestyle Affiliate, which was teaching our process for setting up all these affiliate sites, which has again now been rolled into Screw You. And so it was just I just felt like I was constantly having to push something, and I hate that feeling. So it was really Josh who said, what if we just, roll everything into a monthly membership community? And we made that switch in June.
Very good.
Yeah.
I'm actually going through a similar type of process. We've had online courses, which have just been lifetime access for a one-off fee, but exactly that whole thing, you've got to keep pushing it. And sometimes it feels like it's getting harder to sell. Sometimes I think, well, maybe everybody on my list has seen the offer. They've either bought it or they haven't. They don't want to hear from me again in 3 months.
And do you like
months.
lifetime membership?
Well, not necessarily. I'd much prefer the recurring the recurring membership side of things, and that's what we're testing and validating now. And we'll take on a beta group of students by the time this probably goes to air. no, I'd much prefer the concept of a membership site, but often people have said, yes, but people will leave typically after 3 or 4 or 5 months. So the argument has often been, well, if you charge a membership, like a lifetime access, they're essentially buying 12 or 24 months worth of access, which is more than you'd get if you just had a month-by-month fee, because the attrition rate, you lose people. So how have you found your attrition rate, or have you had any concerns about people leaving at the same rate that they're signing up, so you're still having to constantly push it anyway?
Yeah, well, that's the beauty of having these funnels set up and my group. Like, I rarely have to push Screw You because I have a bunch of my Screw You members in the free group who talk about it all the time. So it really helps with social proof and really marketing that community. So it's not always on me. With that being said, we still, of course, do monthly webinars to push it, just like you would if you had a digital product. But with the whole, churn rate, I mean, that's just a part of the game. It's exactly, if you have like digital product, you're going to have a refund rate. You know what I mean? And for me, I mean, I felt, because when we were selling Screw You, we were selling it at $2,000 for lifetime. And we would find all sorts of ways to spend that money right off the bat. You reinvest back into your business. You're like, oh shit, I just spent that $2,000. You know what I mean? Whereas at least now it comes in gradually and it just keeps building on each other. Also, I find with memberships, like, you just have to figure out a way to make people not want to leave. Like, yes, there will be people who want to cancel, of course. But I always find that people will come for the stuff, but they will really stay for the connection and the community if you can truly create something that is uber supportive and kind of like a family. Like, that is my biggest goal with Screw You, is to really create a family atmosphere. So it is incredibly supportive. It's super encouraging. Josh and I are in there 4 to 5 days a week. And there's certain elements that we've put in place that help to kind of ease up on the churn rate. So we have what we call U-Crews. And U-Crews are local-based mastermind and discussion groups so that people can meet up in person in their local area with people who are doing a similar thing. Because one thing we noticed is people always said, my friends and family don't get what I'm doing. You know what I mean? So it's a big pain point for people. So we wanted to figure out a way to kind of combat that. So we introduced U-Crews, and it's just yet another thing that kind of makes people stick around because they don't want to lose out on that community.
Yeah. Okay, and so you've got your Facebook group, which is free with your nearly 6,000 odd members. And then you've also got a private Facebook community for your Screw You paying members as well.
Well, it's a forum.
That's a forum.
So I have a completely separate, so we use IP board, and it's such a sick forum software. So there's a whole bunch of functionality. So, for U-Crews, for example, they can have their own separate private forum that is just for that crew. Or we have monthly live calls, and that can all sit inside the forum. So we have a Facebook group for paid members, but we mostly use that as like a notice board pretty much. Okay.
And from your personal point of view, Jill, what is it that you like most about managing that community on Facebook?
Oh, the free one?
Yeah, the free one, yeah.
Okay. So for me, I mean, I love nothing more than getting people, kind of united behind a message or a purpose. And it sounds so silly to say, but I really believe that Screw the 9 to 5 is a movement. And I feel like that free Facebook group really helps to educate people on what we're here to do and how we can help them. And of course, it helps to market our business, but it also helps to create a sick community that helps people in their businesses, plus connects them with other people who are trying to do a similar thing. And then, when they get however much value out of the free group, a ton of people end up coming over to the paid one because they're like, oh, damn, if the free group is this good, I can't imagine what the paid one would be like.
Right.
So for me, that's been my biggest motivation behind it. It's like marketing for our brand on steroids without having to spend ad money.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because I'm in the free group and I like it how you give everybody a kick up the backside every now and again. I remember one post you were saying, a lot of people are in the group, but there's only about, X% that are commenting, and a lot of people are lurking. Yeah. Speak up and tell us what you're doing and stop lurking in the shadows and
I am not afraid.
Yourself.
Yeah, I'm not afraid to, give a quick, swift kick to the ass.
I think you need that with a community manager. I like that. And so how about with your content marketing? So outside of, say, your Facebook group on the public-facing stuff, Are you doing much in the way of guest blogging or on your own blog, or you've obviously got your own podcast, but what sort of stuff are you doing and what's working the best?
Well, we actually just ended our podcast. So that was kind of a big decision for us for 2016. I felt like we had so much going on and all these projects we wanted to do. And I just didn't feel like we had the mental white space to do any of it well. And I felt like with our podcast, we were just creating episodes that were good enough to meet our editorial calendar. And for me, good enough just isn't good enough. And I didn't like putting out stuff that was just like, ugh, I don't even like that one. You know what I mean? So we made the decision, which was, I mean, it was a difficult decision. Not a lot of people have been thrilled about it, but we had to just take a step back from the podcast to allow us to actually have the space and the energy to actually create the stuff that we want to create, because these funnels are they move the needle for our business in such a big way, in a big, more measurable way than our podcast did. So it was kind of realizing and just falling in line with what was working for our business versus what kept people entertained. You know what I mean? And like, while I'm more than happy to be a source of entertainment, like I'm also here to run a fucking business. So it was just a decision we had to make. And now it gives us more space to kind of create the stuff we want to create and build up Screw You. And that's pretty much our main priority. And so I don't know. It was just with our other content marketing, we have these read magnets, like I explained before, in our funnels. So that is a big priority of mine, is creating like constantly high quality, really in-depth blog posts that lead into a certain funnel. I do a lot of videos with people. I've just created a free 4-week visibility challenge to help people amp up the exposure. And then, like I said, when I was kind of going over my strengths for our business, one of them is coverage. So I also wanted to create a lot of, just space on my calendar to be able to do more of this, like more getting on podcasts, getting our name out there, building up our brand exposure, that kind of stuff.
Okay, and much in the way of guest blogging, or are all the read magnets on your website and then you'll talk about them on shows like this, and will people come back to your site, or are you actually actively guest blogging?
No, so those are all on my site, but I will start guest posting. I just have a whole master list of all the sites I'm planning on pitching, all the podcasts that I want to reach out to, all that kind of stuff. But the read magnets are all on our site. And then I used to guest blog like crazy. It's how we built the Screw when we first started it. But now I kind of just like talking. So I'd rather do podcast interviews, because I feel like, at least for me, I feel like I'm kind of a talker, in case you haven't noticed. And so it's easier for me to get my message out there this way.
Look, I'm totally with you, Jill. I've done tons of guest blogging and hundreds of articles on my own blog. Now that we've got a blog manager, I love that, and I much prefer doing the podcast interviews on my own show or other people's shows. It's a lot easier to create, a podcast in half an hour or an hour than it is for me anyway to write out an actual blog post. But the strange thing is, it's not just like, I like writing our email newsletters out to our audience, but for some reason I don't like blogging as much. I haven't quite wrapped my head around why, but I think
it's because emails, you can write them like you're writing to a friend, right? Or at least that's how I write them. So I find them so much easier to write. Whereas blog posts, you actually want to help people. I mean, you know what I mean? You want to help people in your emails, but they're easier to write because they're so much more conversational. Whereas a blog post has to have structure, it has to have flow, examples, a call to action, all that sort of stuff. So I totally feel it.
Oh, good. Next question was going to be, is there anything that we haven't covered or anything you want to get off your chest before we call it a day?
Oh, man. I mean, I could keep talking for hours in case you can't tell, but I think I'll let your listeners rest now.
Okay. What are some good ways that people can get in touch with you or locate some of these good read magnets, or the Facebook group, or the best way people can take the next steps?
Well, if you like, I'll shoot you the link to my read magnet on Sales Funnel. So if people do want to see our process, then that is the perfect way to check it out, because I lay it all out in that post. So they can check that out in your show notes. And then if you want to come hang out with me in the free Facebook group, it's screwcommunity.com. Or you could just go to our main site, which is Screw the 9 to 5, all spelt out.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Jill. Have a fantastic day on your side of the world.
Thanks so much for having me.
Pleasure. And that's a wrap for my chat with Jill Stanton. Really interesting for me personally, because as I said in the pre-show, we are looking to build our own membership site, and we're in the process of validating and testing that with a small subset of our list at the moment. And I thought it was really sort of fascinating that Jill has stopped doing her podcast. It was certainly one that I listened to quite a bit, but it goes to show that, you do need that headspace, and you do need to understand what brings you the most joy, what works the best, and as she said, what moves the needle. So for them, the podcast wasn't getting as much traction as what they discovered was the sales funnels and that online community. So if you're in a similar situation and you're considering, how do I get more time to do some of these online marketing things, then consider putting things to bed and discontinuing them. I know I've certainly done that over the years when things have been chewing up more time than I thought they should and not bringing the results that I thought they should. So there's nothing wrong with that at all. Discontinue the stuff that doesn't work as well. I mean, the podcast was hugely popular. I loved it. And as she said, not that many people are rapt about the fact that they've stopped it. But for her and Josh, it frees up that time to focus on the things that do work best for them. Jill mentioned that they had opened up their free Facebook community in April 2015. And it's interesting because other friends have told me that as well, that, their Facebook group is their testing bed, their way to uncover new product ideas and to validate them and everything else. And I suspect that is something that Toby and I will also do. We have definitely discussed it at our quarterly meetings. And I guess one of the things holding me back personally is that community management side of things. Jill has said that she loves it. And, I think from what I've discussed with other people, you need a certain number of people in a group. Like I think over 80 is what Dan Norris told me Dan Norris, who's obviously been on the podcast quite a few times now from WP Curve. He's got great Facebook communities, but you do need a certain number of people. Otherwise, in my smaller groups on Facebook, it feels like you're pushing to drive discussion all the time. And for me, that was a bit draining. But I think if we opened it up and had a lot more people in the group chatting amongst themselves, that would probably get that momentum and traction that Jill certainly has with her 6,000 people in the group. And of course, the sales funnel and that notion of an octopus with all these different tentacles driving people into the core offer. And James Schramko was the person she mentioned who she's been modeling this on. And of course, James was on a previous episode of this show as well. But I found that particularly interesting, having the read magnets, essentially detailed blog articles guiding people to a lead magnet, which is flagship content that people can download in exchange for their email address, and then having a sales funnel or an email sequence from there introducing low-priced offers. Jill said hers was a $79 product that for the first 15 minutes is reduced to $19. And then if you don't buy it in the first 15 minutes, you've still got another 48 hours to buy it at $39, a one-time only offer or an OTO in marketing lingo. And of course, after that, they introduced their core offer, which is their membership site. So for me personally, that is something that I'm going to take a good hard look at. And of course, in the show notes, you've got the link to Jill's article on how to build a sales funnel. And I encourage you to read that. I'm reading it before I recorded these post show notes. So look, all in all, a fantastic episode. I hope you found it very valuable. If you did, then please share your thoughts with me either privately on email. You can always get me adam.franklin@bluewiremedia.com.au. Tweet me, Franklin_Adam, and it would be super, super appreciated if you could take 30 seconds now to duck over to iTunes or Stitcher or SoundCloud and leave us a review and a rating. It really does help increase our visibility. And if you found the show valuable, I would really appreciate it if you could head on over there and do that. Thank you for listening all the way through to the end. And if you haven't downloaded our templates, head to bluewiremedia.com.au/book. All of our 33 marketing templates are there. And I will see you on the next show. Take care.